On the night of March 12, 2025, a mild autumn Wednesday with a temperature of 18 degrees Celsius and a partly cloudy sky, 4 men vanished without a trace while traveling along a rural road in the interior of Paraná. Leonardo Machado, 34 years old. Carlos. Eduardo Oliveira, 29 years old. Renato Ferreira, 32 years old. And Marcelo Santos, 36 years old, were returning from an agricultural fair held in the municipality of Cascavel, when at some point between the districts of Rio do Salto and Snow, João do Oeste, all contact with the group was completely lost. Leonardo, the owner of an agricultural equipment store in Curitiba, had invited the 3 friends, all entrepreneurs in the agricultural sector, to see the technological innovations presented at Expo Agro Cascavel. The 4 were well known in the region as successful entrepreneurs, each responsible for their own business, collectively employing more than 200 people in the Curitiba metropolitan area. According to security footage from the fair, the group left the event at 11:47 p.m. when the cameras in the parking lot recorded them entering Leonardo's silver 2024 Toyota Hilux truck. The vehicle was last seen at 12:23 a.m. on March 12 when it passed the Ipiranga gas station on the outskirts of Cascavel, as shown by surveillance footage. At this moment, Leonardo fueled the vehicle, bought water and snacks for the return trip. They were excited, discussing the equipment they had seen at the fair. Leonardo mentioned that he planned to close a big deal the following week. According to Juliano Pereira, the gas station attendant who served the 4 men, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. They paid in cash and continued their journey. According to the plan communicated to their families, the 4 intended to return to Curitiba. That very night, traveling along the PR 180 to Boa Vista da Aparecida, then following BR 27 toward the capital of Paraná. The approximately 491 kilometers journey was expected to be completed in about 5 hours and 30 minutes. With an expected arrival around 6 a.m., the last confirmed contact occurred at 12:48 a.m. when Leonardo sent a message via WhatsApp to his wife, Fernanda Machado, informing her that they were on the road and would arrive in the morning. The message was accompanied by a photo of the 4 inside the vehicle, with the dashboard showing 102,437 kilometers driven. At 6:30 a.m., worried about the lack of updates, Fernanda began calling her husband, but all calls went directly to voicemail. At 7:15 a.m., she contacted the other 3 men's wives and discovered that none of them had heard from their husbands since the previous night. At 8:47 a.m., Fernanda filed a missing persons report at the Curitiba police station. "My husband has never failed to keep in touch. He always informed me of any delay. He always stayed in contact. Something serious happened, I'm sure of it," Fernanda stated in her initial testimony. The region the group was supposed to pass through is known for its rugged topography, with winding stretches of road bordering the Salto Caxias Lake, formed by the dam of the Governador José Richa hydropower plant. The area is predominantly rural, with soybean and corn farms, cattle ranches, and remnants of Atlantic forest, along with areas of reforestation. The first search efforts began at 10:20 a.m. on the same day when state highway patrol vehicles started to patrol the planned route, looking for signs of accidents or the vehicle by the roadside. At the same time, the phone service providers were contacted in an attempt to locate the cell phones, but with no success. None of the 4 devices emitted a signal after 1:07 a.m. when Carlos Eduardo's phone registered its last connection with a cell tower near the district of Rio do Salto. If you want to follow more cases like this, which shake society and reveal hidden truths, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any investigation. The first 48 hours after the disappearance were marked by an intense mobilization of the security forces of Paraná. The civil police assigned Detective Marcos Enrique Roca from the Homicide and Protection to Persons Division to lead the investigation. On March 13th, fire department teams, assisted by search dogs, began searching the forested areas along PR 180, focusing on the stretch between Rio do Salto and the intersection with PR 473. We are working with several hypotheses at this moment, ranging from an accident in a difficult-to-reach area to the possibility of a crime, stated Detective Roca in a press conference held on March 14th. What makes this case particularly challenging is the complete absence of evidence. There is no record of any accidents. The vehicle has not been found, and the cell phones are off. One of the first investigative lines focused on the possibility of a kidnapping, considering the financial profile of the missing men. However, in the days following the disappearance, no ransom demand was made to the families, and no unusual financial activity was detected in the accounts of the four businessmen. On March 15th, the federal police took over the case due to the possibility of an interstate crime, as the region borders Mato Grosso do Sul and is less than 100 kilometers from the Paraguayan border. Satellite images of the area were requested, and drones equipped with thermal cameras were used to search areas that were difficult to access. One aspect that has intrigued investigators from the start is the fact that the region's roads are monitored by radars and cameras from the Department of Roadways, date TPPR. However, after the vehicle passed the Ipiranga gas station in Cascavel, there is no record of the truck in any of the monitoring equipment along the planned route. It's as if the vehicle vanished, said Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Almeida of the Highway Police Battalion. We have images of the main roads, and none of them captured the passage of that specific vehicle after it left Cascavel. On March 18, 6 days after the disappearance, a new lead brought fresh elements to the investigation. A worker from a farm located 12 kilometers from Rio do Salto reported seeing a silver truck traveling along a rural road around 1:30 a.m. on March 12th. According to the caretaker Joe Pereira, who was returning from a visit to a relative, the vehicle appeared to be off its usual route. I found it strange because that road leads nowhere. It only gives access to a few farms and then turns into dense forest. It's not a route for someone heading to Curitiba, João declared in his testimony. This information led the search teams to redirect their efforts to the indicated area, roughly a 70-kilometer stretch of farms interspersed with dense patches of native forest. Between March 19th and 25th, over 120 agents, including police officers, firefighters, and volunteers from local communities, meticulously combed the area. On March 22nd, during these searches, the first material clue was found, a chrome lighter with the initials LM engraved, later identified by Fernanda as belonging to Leonardo Machado. The item was found on the edge of a dirt road about 18 kilometers from PR 180. However, despite the intensification of the search in the area, no other evidence was found nearby. An analysis of the financial and professional histories of the four missing men revealed another noteworthy element. In February 2025, just a month before the disappearance, Leonardo and Marcelo had closed a contract to supply agricultural equipment to a group of farmers in the border region between Brazil and Paraguay, in a deal worth nearly $4.7 million. We are investigating whether there is any connection between this recent deal and the disappearance, stated Detective Roca on March 27th. We haven't ruled out the possibility that they may have been targeted in an ambush related to business interests or territorial disputes in the region. Meanwhile, the family's distress grew with the passing days. On March 30th, 18 days after the disappearance, the wives of the four men organized a caravan that traveled the route between Curitiba and Cascavel, distributing flyers and drawing national media attention to the case. Every day that passes is a torture. We don't know if they are alive, if they're hurt, if they need help. Our children ask for their fathers every day. Cristina Oliveira, wife of Carlos Eduardo, vented during an interview on a national TV broadcast. The investigation faced several obstacles, including the vast territorial expanse of the region, the lack of witnesses in sparsely populated rural areas, and the absence of electronic communication signals that could help track the group. The weather conditions were also unfavorable. Between April 1st and 4th, intense rains hit western Paraná, complicating the search efforts and potentially washing away any remaining traces. On April 7th, 26 days after the disappearance, a new and significant element surfaced in the case. A security camera installed on a rural property, not registered in the official monitoring system, recorded the passage of a truck matching Leonardo's Toyota Hilux at 2:14 a.m. on March 12th. The footage, of low quality due to distance and nighttime conditions, showed the vehicle being closely followed by a dark truck, possibly a Ford Ranger. This is the first concrete evidence that there may have been an interception of the vehicle, stated Detective Roca. The images suggest that they may have been followed and later intercepted. The property where the camera was installed belongs to Antonio Cardoso, a farmer with extensive land holdings in the area. According to Cardoso, the camera was installed due to recent cattle thefts on his property, and he hadn't mentioned its existence earlier because he didn't believe it could contain any relevant information. I only checked the footage when I heard that the search had intensified in this area, the farmer explained. I never imagined it might have recorded something important. Analysis of the footage by the Federal Police's Technical Department confirmed that the first vehicle matched Leonardo's truck in both model and color, as well as visible details. As for the second vehicle, it was determined to be a double cab pickup truck, dark in color, but without a precise license plate or identification of the occupants. Based on this new evidence, the investigators refocused their efforts within a 30-kilometer radius from the point where the images were captured. Between April 8th and 15th, a new intensive search operation was carried out, this time with the support of helicopters equipped with high-resolution cameras and thermal imaging technology. On April 12th, exactly 1 month after the disappearance, a crucial discovery was made in a dense forest area. About 43 kilometers from the location where the cameras recorded the vehicles, automotive glass fragments, pieces of plastic consistent with rear light covers, and tire marks suggesting a sudden departure from the dirt road were found. The forensic analysis confirmed that the fragments were consistent with the windshield used in the 2024 Toyota Hilux, and subsequent laboratory tests detected traces of blood on one of the plastic fragments. However, the amount was insufficient to extract DNA. The evidence suggests that a violent event occurred at this location, stated forensic expert Dr. Claudia Mendez. The arrangement of the fragments and the marks on the ground indicate that the vehicle may have been forced off the road, possibly after an intentional collision. In the following days, the search focused on a 5 kilometers radius from this point, with particular attention given to dense forests, ravines, and watercourses. On April 18th, search dogs detected a trail that led the investigators to a clearing about 700 meters from where the fragments were found. In this clearing, the search team found tire marks indicating that vehicles had recently parked there, as well as traces of a campfire and 5 spent shotgun shells from 12-gauge ammunition used in large-caliber shotguns. Forensic experts identified that the shells were recent, with a manufacturing date of 2024. Leave your comments. Never give up on the truth if you believe that all the missing persons deserve to be found. The message read, on April 23rd, 42 days after the disappearance, the investigation took an unexpected turn. A man named Pedro Silveira, 27, sought out the Cascavel police station, claiming to have information about the case. Silveira who worked as a security guard on farms in the area, reported having witnessed part of the events that night, but feared for his life if he spoke out. "I was on patrol at a nearby property when I saw two trucks stop on a rural road. Saw armed men forcing others out of one of the vehicles. I couldn't identify faces. I was far away and it was night, but I heard screams. Then shots," Silvera reported in his formal testimony. According to him, after witnessing the scene, he hid and observed as the armed men forced the 4 occupants of the Hilux truck into the second truck. While 2 of the attackers took control of the Hilux, the 2 vehicles then drove along a road leading to more remote areas. Silvera claimed that he did not report the incident immediately out of fear of retaliation, as he believed it was related to organized crime operating in the border region. He only decided to speak out after seeing the suffering of the families in the media and receiving guarantees of police protection. Based on this testimony, on April 24th, the federal police, in cooperation with the civil police of Paraná, launched Operation Encruzilhada, executing 14 search and seizure warrants on rural properties in the region. One of the main targets was the Fazenda Três Fronteiras, located 67 kilometers from Cascavel, owned by José Roberto Mendonça, a businessman with operations in both Brazil and Paraguay. During the search at Fazenda Três Fronteiras, investigators found Leonardo's Toyota Hilux truck in a shed away from the main building, with its license plates altered and in the process of being dismantled. Preliminary analysis identified blood traces inside the vehicle. The evidence found confirms part of the witness's account and establishes a direct connection between this location and the disappearance of the 4 businessmen, stated Dr. Alexandre Guimarães, the federal police officer in charge of the operation. 2 farm workers were detained at the scene, and after interrogation, one of them, identified as Rodrigo Alves, 31, confessed to his involvement in the crime. According to his statement, the kidnapping of the 4 businessmen was ordered by José Roberto Mendonça, who was dissatisfied with the terms of the equipment supply contract negotiated with Leonardo and Marcelo. The boss said they were selling overpriced machinery and had diverted part of the advance payment, Alves reported in his statement. "He told us to scare them, but things got out of hand." According to Alves' confession, after the ambush on the rural road, the 4 businessmen were taken to a remote area within Fazenda Três Fronteiras, where they were interrogated and beaten. During the confrontation, Carlos Eduardo allegedly resisted and tried to escape, being shot. The other 3 were then executed to eliminate witnesses. They were buried in a forested area on the property, near a stream that overflows during the rainy season, Alves indicated. The boss said the water would wash away any evidence. Based on this information, on April 26th, forensic teams began excavations in the indicated area. After 2 days of meticulous searches, on April 28th, 4 bodies were found in an advanced state of decomposition, buried about 2 meters deep in a hard-to-reach area. The bodies were sent to the Legal Medical Institute of Curitiba, where DNA tests confirmed on May 2nd that they were indeed the 4 missing businessmen. Preliminary autopsy reports indicated that all 4 were victims of gunshot wounds with characteristics of execution-style killings. José Roberto Mendonça, identified as the mastermind behind the crime, was not found during the operation. According to federal police information, he had left Brazil for Paraguay 3 days after the businessmen disappeared. An international arrest warrant was issued, and Mendonça's name was included in Interpol's red list. On May 10th, after intense international cooperation, Mendonça was located and arrested in Pedro Juan Caballero, a town in Paraguay on the border with Brazil. The businessman denied all accusations, claiming to be the victim of a conspiracy. The investigation further revealed that the crime had more complex motivations than initially assumed. In addition to the alleged overpricing of the agricultural equipment contract, documents found during the searches indicated that Leonardo and his partners had uncovered a money laundering scheme involving the purchase of agricultural machinery used to prepare land for illegal marijuana cultivation in Paraguayan territories near the border. This case exposed the complex criminal relationships that exist in the border region, where legitimate agribusiness often intertwines with illicit activities. Dr. Guimarães stated in a press conference on May 15th, the bodies of the 4 businessmen were finally handed over to the families and buried on May 5th in a joint ceremony held in Curitiba, attended by over 2,000 people. The case, known as the disappearances of the West, led to significant changes in security policies in the border region, including the installation of more monitoring points on rural roads and strengthening cooperation between Brazilian and Paraguayan police forces. No justice will bring our husbands back, but we will fight to ensure that crimes like this do not go unpunished and that other families do not go through what we have endured, stated Fernanda Machado, who, along with the other widows, founded the Memory and Justice Association, dedicated to supporting families of victims of violent crimes in Paraná. José Ribeiro Mendoza and 6 other individuals accused of participating in the crime await trial, facing charges of qualified homicide, concealment of a corpse, criminal association, money laundering, and other related crimes. If convicted, they could face sentences totaling more than 100 years in prison. The case also exposed vulnerabilities in the monitoring system for secondary roads and borders, leading to the implementation of the Fronteira Segura, Secure Border program, a joint initiative by the federal and state governments to intensify surveillance in strategic regions. 3 months after the official resolution of the case, the impact of the disappearance and death of the 4 businessmen continues to reverberate both within the families and in the social, economic, and public security spheres of Paraná. The families of the victims, united by their shared tragedy, turned their grief into social action. The Memory and Justice Association, founded by the widows, now supports more than 30 families of victims of violent crimes in the state, providing legal, psychological, and financial assistance. In July 2025, the association succeeded in getting a law passed in the Legislative Assembly of Paraná that establishes stricter and more immediate protocols for cases of disappearance. The Leonardo, Carlos, Renato, and Marcelo law mandates that searches for missing persons under suspicious circumstances must begin immediately, without the waiting period that was previously common, explains lawyer Patricia Mendez, who represents the association. If this law had existed, perhaps the outcome could have been different. In the business world, the companies founded by the 4 businessmen faced significant challenges following their deaths. Leonardo's agricultural equipment store was taken over by his wife, Fernanda, who, despite her initial lack of experience in the sector, managed to maintain the 72 employees and expand operations into the family farming sector. I turned my pain into strength to preserve my husband's legacy, Fernanda said in an interview. Each piece of equipment we sell to small farmers is a way to honor his memory, as he always believed in the potential of Paraná's agribusiness. Carlos Eduardo's company, specializing in irrigation systems, was acquired by an international group, but its headquarters remained in Curitiba, and most of the employees were retained. Renato and Marcelo's companies were merged and are now managed by a board of family members with professional advisory services. In the public security sphere, the case led to a complete revision of monitoring protocols in rural and border areas. The Fronteira Segura, Secure Border program, implemented in June 2025, has already installed over 200 new electronic surveillance points on secondary and rural roads, creating a monitoring network that makes it more difficult for unregistered vehicles to travel. The case of the disappearances of the West exposed a critical vulnerability in our security system, stated the Secretary of Public Security of Paraná, Colonel Roberto Almeida. We are determined to close these gaps and ensure that our rural borders are as secure as urban areas. Investigations into the connections between legitimate agribusiness and criminal organizations in the border region are still ongoing. Since the discovery of the scheme during the resolution of the case, the federal police have launched 3 more operations, resulting in the seizure of agricultural machinery valued at over 80 million reais used in illicit activities. What we uncovered was just the tip of the iceberg, declared Detective Dr. Alexander Guimarães. There's an entire underground economy operating in the shadows of border agribusiness, and we are just beginning to understand its extent. In the judicial sphere, the process against José Roberto Mendonça and the other accused is proceeding at an accelerated pace. In a preliminary hearing held on July 20th, the court denied all habeas corpus requests and maintained the preventive detention orders. The trial is expected to begin in October 2025, and it could become one of the longest and most complex trials in Paraná's legal history. This case represents not only 4 lives brutally interrupted, but also a direct attack on the rule of law and the economic security of the region, stated prosecutor Dr. Luciana Campos, responsible for the prosecution. We will seek the maximum sentence for everyone involved. For the local communities, the case brought to light a reality that many had preferred to ignore: the presence of organized crime infiltrated in legitimate economic activities. In public hearings held in the city councils of Cascavel, Toledo, and other cities in the region, citizens reported similar pressures faced by small and medium-sized business owners. After what happened to those 4 men, many people started speaking up about what used to be whispered, said José Pereira, a councilman from Boa Vista da Aparecida. Fear still exists, but now there is also a collective determination not to let crime continue dictating the rules. For the investigators who dedicated months to the case, the resolution brought a mix of professional satisfaction and reflection on the limitations of the system. We were able to deliver justice for 4 families, but we know there are other similar cases that remain unsolved, pondered Detective Marcos Enrique Roca. Each solved case teaches us valuable lessons on how to improve our methods and protocols. The impact of the case extended beyond the borders of Paraná, drawing attention to the need for more effective national policies on border control and international cooperation. In August 2025, Brazil and Paraguay signed a new judicial and police cooperation agreement, facilitating the extradition of criminals and real-time information sharing. If you watched until the end, it's because you care about these cases that forever mark families. Leave a comment saying, "I watched until here so I can know you and see who really cares about the search for the truth." The video message encouraged. Meanwhile, in the rural communities where Leonardo, Carlos, Renato, and Marcelo passed through that fateful night in March, memorial plaques were installed in their memory, reminding everyone who travels those roads about the high price that can be paid when crime operates in the shadows and the state fails to protect its citizens. 4 lives, 4 families, 4 companies, hundreds of jobs, and countless dreams were interrupted here, reads the memorial plaque installed at the location where the bodies were found, now turned into a small sanctuary regularly visited by family and friends. May their memory inspire us to build a future where justice prevails over impunity. The families of the victims, united by their common tragedy, have turned their grief into social action. The Memory and Justice Association, founded by the widows, now supports over 30 families of victims of violent crimes in the state, providing legal, psychological, and financial assistance. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel to follow other investigative cases like this. Leave your like to support this kind of content and share with friends and family who are interested in real criminal investigation cases. Your participation is crucial for stories like this to not be forgotten, and for the truth to continue being pursued, even in the most complex and challenging cases.